So 12 years ago, my roommate at the time was a guy named Rob Kalin. He just graduated, actually, not from this exact part of NYU, but from NYU, which was his 5th attempt at college. And he was making these handmade wooden computers. And he actually set up a little makeshift factory in his bedroom. He had the saws, all of the electrical equipment to, solder all the components together. And he decided that he actually wanted to try to sell these online. But when he went to eBay, he didn't really want to put his stuff on eBay because he felt that it didn't really do justice to all of the, love and art and work that had gone into making this thing. And so he decided he was going to build his own website to sell his computers. But as he was building it, he realized that probably other people who were making things also didn't want to sell their stuff on eBay. So he said, I'll make a website for everybody who makes things. And that was Etsy. So Etsy started about 11 years ago in Brooklyn. Rob and 2 programmers from NYU actually built the first version of Etsy. And at the time I was living with Rob, I was barely making a living as an indie rock musician. Had a little screen printing business on the side with Rob, but never imagined that I would be here talking to you about business, certainly. And he said, well, why don't you come and work at Etsy with us? And I said, well, what would I do? I'm not a web programmer. He's like, you can be the marketing guy. And I was like, marketing? Like, I don't know anything about marketing. And he's like, perfect. And so I actually remember that conversation, not because I was perfect at marketing, but I did have a total beginner's mind when it came to marketing. And I had no preconceptions about how you're supposed to do marketing or how you're supposed to do business. And so I approached it from a very open place. In the end, I think that both my inexperience and something that Chuck said earlier today, you kind of just stumble into social entrepreneurship. But the whole team really having a beginner's mind ended up having Etsy unfold in really beautiful and unusual ways, very differently than it would have if it had maybe come out of business school or something like that. So I said, sure, yeah, okay, I'll join as the marketing person. And at the time, I remember we'd just gotten our first round of venture funding, and I was scared out of my mind because I was so convinced that they were going to figure out that I had no idea what I was doing. And so I kind of went out on my own self-guided business education journey. Oh wait, there's some early marketing for Etsy, right? Real beginner's mind, very, very web savvy. Like, I'll screen print posters and stick them up around town. Like, that'll get people to our website. But at the time, so I set out to basically teach myself how to do business. And the more I learned about business as it was conventionally practiced, the less I really wanted to do it that way. The more, I found that it was at odds in a lot of ways with a lot of my values. At the same time, I got really interested in my own spiritual development and reading a lot of Buddhist thinkers. I got into economists like E.F. Schumacher and created my own kind of business that I think was more inspired by those things than by how one might want to do business. So that led me on my own 10-year journey with Etsy to figure out the ways that I could maximize the social, ecological, and economic impact that I have in the world and make that my personal mission, and ultimately it became the mission of Etsy.com, whose mission today is to reimagine commerce in ways that build a more fulfilling and lasting world. So about a year and a half ago, Etsy was going public, and we saw it was an opportunity to create a separate entity that could further that mission. And so Chad, who's the CEO of Etsy now, said, well, why don't you figure out what that is? And so I started with that mission, reimagine commerce in ways that build a more fulfilling and lasting world. And I said, if we're going to reimagine business, we need to reimagine business education. Again, funny because, of course, what do I know about business education, right? I'm the perfect guy to pick to build a business school. But that's exactly what we did. So about a year ago, we launched Good Work Institute. It started out as Etsy.org. Created a lot of confusion because we actually are entirely independent from Etsy. But they gave us the initial capital to get going. And the Good Work Institute exists to help people work in ways that regenerate their lives, their communities, and the planet. And the word regenerate is really key here. One of the things that I found during my time at Etsy, and as I got more involved in the B Corp community and the social venture network and all of these things, while there are a lot of really great businesses out there, I think Eileen Fisher is a perfect example of a business that's thinking in this net positive, regenerative way. I felt a lot of people were kind of stopping at less bad. That, less emissions from shipping, which is less bad, but it isn't necessarily more good. Less plastic in a water bottle, right? Well, less bad, but, are we asking ourselves the question, like, maybe we shouldn't be having water bottles at all? So I started thinking about what is it going to take to actually do business in ways that move beyond less bad? And the conclusion that we've come to is that it will require a shift in consciousness. And I think a number of the other speakers have been talking about this today. I believe that at the root of all of the problems that we're facing right now in the world and in our economy is this notion that we're separate from the natural world, that we're separate from one another, and that our success isn't shared somehow. And if we can shift our view and recognize that every place and every person that's touched by the choices that we make in business matters. And if we so choose, we can actually aim to have that net positive benefit on all those people and places through the choices that we make. And so we call that doing good work. We started out our program as the Regenerative Entrepreneurship Program, and I realized that was really wonky, and well, what does that actually mean? And so we've kind of come to this notion of good work. So to help us understand what we mean by good work, we've created 6 principles. Good work honors place. It recognizes that the success of the natural world is not separate from the success of our business, that there is no economy without ecology. Good work nourishes the whole human. So work's not just about, it's not just what we do to make a living. It is that, but it's also how we express ourselves as human. And so we should always aim to work in ways that nourish the full human, our mental, physical, spiritual faculties. And that's the same for the people we employ. What's the kind of work we're creating? Good work builds community. It's really about relationship and bringing people together and connecting us to all the people in our places. Good work embodies integrity. Integrity is a great word because I think it speaks to both the ethical and the structural soundness of the work that we do. If you build a product that falls apart, after a couple weeks, you're not really working with integrity. If you're, creating software to hide the diesel emissions from your car, you're not really working with integrity. I say that as someone who has one of those Volkswagens. I'm so mad about it. Working with integrity allows you also to be totally transparent because you've got no secrets. Good work is appropriately scaled. I think this is a really important one. I think so much of business education is saying everything has to become bigger and bigger and bigger. What I would argue is that an organization shouldn't be so big that they're not aware of the impact that they're having on people in place. So how do you develop a business that's of an appropriate scale and can still honor all the people and places that it touches and root itself deeply in a community so that your growth is supported and actually creating benefit for all the people there? Finally, good work stays open. This is kind of I think what I was talking about before too, the accidental falling into social entrepreneurship. There are things out there that I don't think we really understand and that we'll never understand. And what I found in business is that the people who remain very attached to a way of being or to, well, I'm this and it needs to be done this way, tend to miss out on some of the mystery and some of the magic. So how do we work in ways that just leaves us open to all the possibilities and recognizes that there's more than one way to do things? So how do we do good work? And I've been thinking a lot about this, and I have a kind of simple view of how we can do it. I think a lot of us, think that, well, I'd have to quit my job and I'm going to start this social enterprise and it's going to scale to reach, 500 million people, and then I'll finally be doing good work. But my argument is that you can do good work right now, moment to moment, and that's really what it's about. It's really about what we do in the everyday decisions that we face. So we've created a 4-step process for doing good work. So the first step is to pause. So before you make a choice, before you do anything, just stop for a second. Create that little space, that little moment to be mindful, to reflect on what it is you're about to do. Then look deeply, look across, all the people and places that are going to be impacted by the decision that you're going to make. And that includes yourself, right? Then make the decision that ideally causes no harm, but aims actually to create the most amount of benefit for all the people and places that will be impacted by it. And then do that every time you make a decision. And choice by choice, I think we can actually start to build that world that we want, not that one that we want to avoid, not that one that's less bad. So the Good Work Institute is what we do. That's the good work that we're trying to do. But whatever it is you do, I feel you can choose to do good work as well. So thank you very much.